All right, so we're going to dive into this training really quickly on avoiding processed foods. So what we're going to cover today is why this is important, what a processed food is versus a minimally processed food or unprocessed. I'll say kind of both of those things. Nothing is truly unprocessed, but anyways, and then the basics on how to avoid them. So why this is important is processed foods are the number one cause for overeating. They often come with foreign ingredients that cause inflammation in your body. They usually do not come with other beneficial nutrients, and they disrupt the natural signals around food in your body. So we'll dive into a little bit more about what all of these mean. But what exactly is a processed food versus a minimally or unprocessed food? So a processed food is anything that comes in a box, wrapper, bag, bottle, etc. There are a few exceptions, which I'll go over in a second, but pretty much you've probably heard the middle aisles. And you can see anything in here too. Let me zoom in really quickly so you can kind of see. This is a really good example of like cereal, cookies, jarred, sauces, frozen dinners, donuts, sodas, chips, that sort of thing. Cake mix, right? Like soda, bagged pasta, like pancakes, peanut butter, like all this. It's a lot of things that are just processed. They come from factories, they are put into bags and all that stuff, and they have long shelf lives and all of that stuff. So if something can last longer than like 2 months, it's probably a processed food. So examples of this are, again, cereal, ice cream, boxed dinners, frozen meals, chips, cookies, store-bought desserts, snacks, and salad dressings, juice, microwavable dishes, etc. Okay, so why are these harmful? Because you might be thinking, well, like it says healthy, it's a lean cuisine, or it's a healthy choice meal. It's healthy. It's only 300 calories and whatnot. But then you look at the ingredients list, and the ingredients list is like this long. So why is this harmful when you have a processed food? So processed foods are engineered to alter your brain's perception or reception of food. So the ingredients added to these foods have been designed to release a lot of happy hormones, which make you want to eat more while not feeling full. So there's literally engineers and scientists hired by companies like Frito-Lay or Nestle, or like all these companies that make these processed food. They have scientists working for them. And this is proven. You can read, there's a great book called Sugar, Salt, Fat, I think it's called. And it's basically it talks about processed foods and how companies add different ingredients to hijack your body's natural sense of fullness or of palate fatigue and that sort of thing, and how these processed foods just completely overtake that, and they make you overeat so that they can make more money, right? So these ingredients and stuff that they add in there, they also lead to inflammation. So most processed foods have inflammatory ingredients. They're ingredients that your body does not process. So it becomes inflamed in the gut and in the bloodstream. So your body doesn't understand, it doesn't recognize these like off the wall ingredients that companies are synthetically designing to add into these foods. Your body doesn't know what to do with them. So they cause inflammation in the gut, in the bloodstream, all of that sort of thing. So that's a processed food and why we should avoid them. So minimally processed foods are foods that only have like one ingredient or very few ingredients. So they have not been engineered and they are what they are, right? So examples of this are an egg, right? An egg doesn't really come with much. It's just an egg, right? Steak, chicken, pork, turkey, Greek yogurt, oats, fruits, vegetables, pasta, beans, raw nuts, potatoes, rice, etc. Now, earlier I was talking about exceptions to the rule of that bagged and processed thing. So things like, beans, they're going to probably find them in a can, right? Pasta, you're going to find that in a box. Raw nuts, you're going to find that in a bag as well. Rice, you'll find in a bag in the middle aisle. So a lot of these things, oats is another one too. Yeah, oats you'll find in a bag or in a box or something like that. So a lot of, or sometimes a lot of carb sources that are unprocessed are going to be in bags and that sort of thing. And they just naturally have longer shelf lives. That's okay. You just have to know the difference between what does a processed food and an unprocessed food, both found on the same aisle, look like. So it's basically, again, if you turn it over, look at the ingredients list, go to the module that says reading food labels, find that, read that, understand, how do I read this ingredients list? What should I be looking for? What should I not be looking for? That sort of thing. Okay. So why should we include more of these unprocessed or minimally processed foods? Nothing has been done to these foods, so they work with your body instead of against it. Your body recognizes the ingredients in these foods because there's only one or two of them. Your body doesn't have to sort through, okay, what's harmful to us, what's beneficial to us, and sort everything out and then get inflamed and that sort of thing, right? It understands what you're giving it, and then it's going to use that as fuel instead of having to decipher what's good and what's not. So they work with your body's natural satiety signals too. Thus, you'll eat much less of them, and you will not overeat or you'll much less likely to overeat your calories. Right? There's a great example of this is that a bag of Frito-Lay potato chips, right, like Lay's potato chips, there's like 5 full-size potatoes worth of chips in that bag. And I don't know about you, but I could easily eat a full bag of Lay's potato chips, like a normal one that you find on the shelf that's technically for the entire family. I could easily eat one of those in one sitting. If you sit 5 full-size potatoes in front of me and tell me to eat them, I would probably gag. There's no possible way that I could eat 5 full-size potatoes in one sitting. So that is the exact perfect example of how companies can add ingredients to those potatoes. They can fry them in tasty oil, and they can make them crunchy and that sort of thing to completely hijack the body's signal of saying, I don't want this much food. But when you sit down and you eat 5 potatoes and nothing's been done to it, you maybe have baked it to make the potato soft. Other than that, you haven't really done much to it, so it hasn't been processed, and there's no possible way to eat that much food. Okay, so just by the engineering of the product, you're able to eat way more food and way more calories, right? Which is going to keep you overweight. So studies, and this is another study too. They did a 2-group study where one group was allowed to eat processed foods and one group was not allowed to eat processed foods, and they just wanted to see how they would react. So the group who was allowed to eat processed foods ate 500 more calories per day on average than the group who only had whole natural foods to eat. So they put both groups in a room. One group only had the fruits, the vegetables, the meats, the dairy, and that sort of thing that was unprocessed. The other team had all of those things as well. They had the meat, the eggs, the dairy, the unprocessed stuff, but they also had access to processed foods. And that group ate on average 500 more calories per day, which is 3,500 per week, which adds up to over about 1 pound of fat per week added. So it's crazy what these processed foods can really do to your palate and how they can make you overeat. So how do we go about avoiding eating these processed foods? One way to do this is to cook at home. Okay, avoid eating out at restaurants, especially fast food. Now, of course, you don't want to avoid eating out at all restaurants. I love eating out to eat. I love going out to eat. Okay, but mainly we're talking about fast food chains you really want to avoid because they don't use high quality ingredients. They use processed ingredients in their cooking. All right, so you're not getting the benefit of whole foods when you go to these restaurants. Okay, cooking at home also gives you control over what goes into your food and how much of it you get. Right. I don't know about you, but when I get a burger from a fast food restaurant, I'm going to eat the entire burger. But if I was at home and I made a burger of the same size, I may not finish all of it because it's super filling. It doesn't have all the extra added stuff to it that makes me want to overeat and continue to eat more and more and more. Okay. Same thing with like French fries. Like when I'm at home, if I make my own French fries and I cut the potatoes and I season them myself and I put them in the oven or the air fryer or whatever, like I cannot eat an entire box of those as opposed to like going to McDonald's where I could get a large fry and crush the whole thing on top of a McFlurry and a Big Mac. Like, they're literally just designed to make you eat more of them. So if you do go to a quick fast food restaurant, pick a place where you can actually choose what goes in it, like a Chipotle, Panda Express, Kava, Subway, something where you can tell the employee, hey, I want this, this, and this, or I want more of this and less of this and that sort of thing. Instead of just going to a food where you go through the drive-through and you don't even see the thing being made, go to somewhere where you have control over what goes in and out. Okay. Another way to avoid processed foods is, you've heard it all the time, is to shop the perimeter. So this is what I want you to start doing right now is when you go to the grocery store, right, pick out all of the foods that you want to be having, pick them out on the perimeter first. So when you go in, don't go straight down and start shopping the aisles. Pick out all of the food that you want and go the perimeter first, okay? So I'll get into that in a second. But anyways, most processed foods are going to be stored in the aisles of the grocery store. This is because they have a long shelf life due to they don't need to be refrigerated, okay? Exception to this rule, again, oats, pastas, canned or jarred vegetables, rice, peanut butter, raw nuts, right? Like all of these things are going to be found in the middle aisles and they are unprocessed. So there are some exceptions to the rule. But this is how you should be shopping when you go to the grocery store. So keep this in mind. You can print this out, take it with you when you go to the grocery store. First thing you're going to do, you go into the store, you go to the perimeter of the store, and you load up your cart with steak, eggs, milk, chicken, pork, turkey, Greek yogurt, etc. Everything you find on the aisles, cheese, milk, all that stuff. Excuse me. You're going to go around the aisle you're going to go around the perimeter and you're going to get all of that stuff first and put it in your cart. Okay. Then you're going to go to the produce section and you're going to get your fruits, potatoes, cheese, etc. All that stuff. Okay. So after the aisles, you go to the produce section. Then you get everything from there. Then after that, you go to the freezer section and you get your frozen veggies, you get your frozen chicken breasts, you get all that stuff from the freezer section. Then, last but not least, you go to the aisles and you get the unprocessed food from the aisle, and then you go from there. So this is the order you should be going in. One reason for this stuff in here, the steak, eggs, milk, that stuff is refrigerated. It needs to get home quickly. So if you put it in your cart first, that means you're not going to be walking around the aisles and browsing around the aisles for an hour and a half looking for, oh, what's the newest cookie that Oreos just came out with, right? Like you're like, oh shit, I have milk in my cart. I got to get going because I got to get home to put this stuff away. Same thing with the produce and the freezer sections and all that stuff. If you get all this stuff and you put it in your cart first, you're going to be booking it through the store, trying to find, okay, what do I need? And I'm not worried about all this extra stuff and all this extra marketing and advertising and promotion that they're trying to shove in my face to get me to buy these processed foods. I'm not worried about that because I've got frozen food in my cart that's thawing out. I need to get home now. So by putting that stuff in your cart first, you're kind of getting ahead of the game and kind of playing that out with yourself. So I hope this makes sense. Go to the aisles last. Okay. And again, because you have this stuff in your cart already, you're not going to spend that much time in the aisles. All right. So I hope this makes sense. Pretty quick training just on the processed foods. There's going to be a part 2 to this, so be on the lookout for that. But again, if you have more questions about this, just let me know and we can dive deeper into it.